I've opened the diffuse fall-off sample file, which contains some curtains that I made in the Advanced Modeling module. These curtains have a simple material assigned that's using a bitmap in the diffuse color slot. I'd like to use fall-off to make this appear more realistic. Right now the curtains look awfully dark. I'd like to simulate some of the light that's diffusing along the edges of the cloth. You might be tempted to turn up the specular level to simulate that kind of effect, but you'll see that it's not specific to an edge of the cloth. Rather, it covers the entire object. And this particular fabric is kind of rough, so it wouldn't really be appropriate to increase glossiness. That would just get rid of that brightened effect anyway. So I'm going to set specular level and glossiness back to 0. I'll go into the diffuse color map, and you can see that we're dealing with a bitmap here. I'll click on the map type and select fall off. It's a 3D map, and I'll choose it right here. When I do that, it prompts me whether I want to discard the bitmap or keep the bitmap as a submap of fall off. And that's what I want to do. Now look what it did. It put fall off here, and it put the bitmap nested in this slot. You can visualize this with the navigator. So we have a diffuse color map, which is now fall off, and the bitmap is inside of it. You see how that worked? Now the edges here are looking white because we're falling off the diffuse color from this bitmap to this white color. And that's happening by default with the perpendicular parallel type. So surfaces that are more parallel to our viewing direction, namely on the edges of these folds, are appearing white. Now that's kind of what I wanted, but I'd like to tone it down a bit. That's a little bit too much for me. To do that, I'm going to adjust the mix curve. Remember, this is the gradient that transitions from one slot to the other. So in this case, it's transitioning from this bitmap to the white color. Let's keep that in mind. So down here, black represents the bitmap and white represents the white color. I'd like to have less white. So what I'll do is right-click on this vertex and change its type to Bezier corner. That gives me a handle that I can use to shape the curve. I'll drag this handle down, and you'll see how the curve is adjusting. Take a look at this gradient. There's less white in it now. And correspondingly, there's a little bit less white on the object. Now that's what I'm looking for. It looks better than it did originally, but the effect isn't overpowering. It looks like we have a rough, kind of fuzzy surface here that we're simulating with fall off.